Hello, everyone. Welcome to Midweek Gaming. I'm Nick. Over there on the other side of the comms, of course, Justin providing usual commentary
Gameplay,
and gameplay.
entertainment,
Are you not amused?
enjoyment.
Are you not amused?
Are you not entertained?
So yeah, today we thought we'd do something a bit. I don't want to say lighter, but I mean we usually cover a lot of stuff on Destiny. We thought, hey, what the hell? Cover the most recent developments in Destiny. That
Yes.
being that officially, at least as far as anyone can tell, the seasonal narrative, by and large, has wrapped up. I say by and large because there are still a few radio connections, and the final plot of the season has technically not been solved just yet. But 99% of the actual seasonal stuff, story-wise,
For the
is
most
done.
part, is done.
Is done. So I've been seeing a lot of people do their kind of opinions, thoughts, and commentary on the season, and I thought, hey, why not throw our 2 cents in the mix?
Yes.
Now, let me just start off by saying this. This isn't going to be us critiquing the story, and well, it is, but it's not
To an
going to be us
extent.
to an extent.
Yeah.
But we're not just sit here and be like, writers of Bungie, do
Terrible,
this.
terrible, terrible.
Terrible, terrible. I mean, I recently heard Bife. He went on a AMA with one of the writers of the Bungie team that does
Yep.
Destiny, and he asked, how can I give more actionable feedback just in general? And the response given was basically try to give opinions that are less, what's the word? What is the exact word he used? Personal opinions and more kind of objective
Like,
statements of the story.
yeah, statements or something grounded in a form of logic.
Well, not logic per se, but less like something that's like, hey, I think the story was good because I connected with it, Something
Mm.
that's a little less personal and more like, the writing could be better because XYZ, because, lacking of character development, for example. That's pretty grounded in fact, I would say, and that's not something you could argue per se. A character's development is pretty, they had it or they didn't.
Yeah.
So, that kind of thing. So we're not going to be sitting here and being like, Bungie, do this, 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 this. We'll give our
No.
opinions, we'll give our thoughts, but this is just us kind of being like, we liked it, and this is kind of our after opinion of it.
Hmm.
So, with that little disclaimer out of the way,
Well, not really a disclaimer, but like more case in point in what we're doing.
mm-hmm. Excuse me, that drink on the side. But so yeah, let's kind of begin at where else the end. We actually just kind of I didn't just finish up the seasonal story.
I did.
Justin just finished up the seasonal story,
Yeah, for the
and we spent the
longest
last
of
several hours.
longest of time, I haven't been playing because I really haven't been in a Destiny crave. And then all of a sudden, we're like, all right, we're doing this, and we did the
Honest,
whole thing basically all within the span of, I want to say
a few
about
hours.
4 hours.
Yeah, I
Which
thought it wouldn't
I
take so
said
long.
I told you it was gonna take longer than you
It,
thought.
it did, it did, it certainly did. But I think it mostly had take down to us trying to figure out where the frick that one, that one
Are you,
like location was.
my mans? Are you really thinking
Well,
something?
don't get me wrong.
What
There
took
were
the
other
longest
things.
was the dialogue stuff. And the loading time. I'd be willing to bet the loading time probably was 20 minutes, like total, if
Yeah,
you put it all together.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But
But
still,
nonetheless. But yeah, nonetheless, so he has just fully finished the story till this point. I have finished it all the way back on Friday when it first came out, the end part. So yeah, being the guy who just finished it, Justin, what do you think of the whole story as it stands right now?
uh, it was pretty good. Like very like for Eris Morn, I would say it was definitely good character development and definitely good like showing of the growth Eris has had compared to the other timelines Elsie has had to go through, and kind of showing that development Eris has had over the time we've spent with her and other characters have spent with her, like the Drifter and Eris's connection clearly showing like an effect that the two have grown together, and because of that they trust each other and all that. And then the effect of us going and helping Eris during Shadowkeep, like it's clearly kind of all like finalized and been shown in the end here, kind of thing. Like over the season, you kind of see the impact of all that. You see the effects of your work, basically.
Yeah, let us preference our work because
Yes.
this season has, for the most part, up until very
Kind
recently,
of ignored the fact that we did a lot of things for people.
like hell, even there are like comments from like, for what it's worth, even Savathun acknowledging that we killed her, right?
Yeah.
But it feels like Eris just like, yeah, no, I killed them all.
Well, not
Eh?
only that, but there's even a part where Ikara kind of goes and says, like, Eris has been through a whole lot, and she's grown, even conquering her nightmares. And I'm like, yeah, she conquered her nightmares with the help of us, doing basically all the legwork to go and find her comrades' lost items and stuff.
I did tell you guys this would be a personal opinion.
I
But
know, but it
jokes
is
aside,
still an important fact. Like
yeah, no, jokes
a
aside,
mention
it's
towards
true.
the whole fact that the Guardian has been there, helping us no matter what. Like, kind of like that kind of connection. That no matter what, we will stand for them just as they will stand for us, type of thing. That would be nice. But
Yeah, no,
we're
I
still
mean,
seeing the fruits of the story coming to fruition.
yeah. Jokes aside, though, like I said, it is kind of interesting. Like outside of Eris kind of being like, I am the one who endured them all. And in fairness, like I said in the last video covering this, with Crota and Oryx, yeah, I can definitely see her hand, but I'm sorry, what exactly did you do in the whole plot of Savathun?
Yes.
I mean, kind of advised us on what to look for
You
in
you
Savathun's
you
world,
helped
but I
us with the deep sight, and that was kind of it. She kind of
even then, kind of more ignored.
advised us, yeah. But Akora kind of brought her in, being like, "All right, this is how we need to go about doing this. The secrets in the Thoron world."
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But like I
Yeah.
said, all in all, it was a good story. I like it. I was honestly wagering that we'd see Savathun's resurrection in the epilogue and not like in the conclusion of the weekly stories, so I was surprised.
Mm.
Granted, I was already kind of figuring we'd see it last week when we kind of had that alluded to. But at the beginning of the season, I was definitely wagering for much more closer to the epilogue when we'd see that happen. That said, it is kind of interesting to see how the story kind of progressed. Mylan kind of made a comment to this where Bungie pretty did a good job of kind of setting up the idea of how Eris would conquer Zevo Wrath. Like, some people were
Hmm.
hoping we'd get some kind of confrontation with Zevu. We'd maybe see her. I doubt it because he's a
See,
weak
no
character. But I
matter
don't think
what,
we
I
will.
didn't think that was gonna happen, because when you really think about it, that at that point kind of plays into her domain of us going direct conflict with her would kind of us be going direct war and like kind of playing into her hand, but us
That's
going
the
and
thing.
circumventing it is kind of a better option for us.
That's the thing, right? There's really only two ways to beat Zevu that we know of, or one, I should say, up until more recently. Technically only one, and that is don't play. And that, like, effectively, the only way to beat Zevu is to effectively sacrifice yourself, which in a way still kind of helps her. It's more of a stalemate at that point. But this season, like we saw, is basically Eris basically ending up getting the massive bit of tribute that she needed to not only get to Zevu's level but surpass her by not only doing what I kind of figured would happen would be us killing the Leviathan Eater, which the minute that thing showed up, I was like, yep, that thing's gonna die. We're
Today
gonna
that
die.
boy dies, he disappears. Good day, sir.
Because I'm thinking, yeah, no, we need a mass amount of tribute to get Eris on that level, and she was not even close before the Leviathan Eater. I'm like, the Leviathan Eater is probably like the bulk of the tribute we're gonna send. Nope. Turns out the bulk of the tribute was us bringing back Savathun and Eris quite literally just basically slitting her throat. And that's what did it, with her basically taking all of Savathun's stored up tribute, which honestly I didn't think she still had access to, given that she lost her worm, but
She lost her worm, but in a way it does make sense that she kind of still has that energy, that power still kind of connected to her, seeing
Yeah,
that
she can't use.
in a way it doesn't make sense entirely that the worm only has all of the power, because then by that logic the worm is kind of the one in complete control, and the one who has the worm in them is just kind of there for the ride.
That's
Like
the
the
thing.
worms are
Like,
meant to kind of allow for the power and all that, so
that's the thing, right? So I kind of didn't see that one coming. Interesting though, like I said. But what really caught me by surprise was how we ended up beating Zivu. Well, I say beat. More drove her back in arguably a way I don't think anyone could have predicted. And that's pulling something we have never seen before in the lore, and that is Eris in her moment of complete dominance over all the Hive, basically snapping Zivu's connection off from her own throne world, which I didn't think you could even do that, honestly speaking.
yep.
Granted, when I was reading the comment section of one video, someone did point out something quite interesting with some of the big lore aficionados, Bife and Mylan, saying we've never seen that kind of thing happen before in the lore. And I think in Mylan's video, someone pointed out in the comment section, I think, forgive me, whoever you are, I don't remember your name. But basically, they pointed out that we actually did see kind of a reverse of what Eris did actually in the story before. And we actually saw this happen all the way back in Destiny 1. You see, what Eris did was she cut Zevo off from her throne world by basically severing her link to the throne world, cutting her off from going back to it. But in Destiny 1, whoever's been around since back then for Dark Below, the actual campaign ends with us pulling the reverse of that, with us cutting off with Crota's ability to come to our world. So basically trapping him in his throne world. Effectively doing the reverse of what happened and cutting him off from the material world. So technically we've kind of seen this happen before, though never in this fashion. So it's certainly an interesting ending. And in other news, if you read the lore book, because yes, it doesn't just end with the cutscene, which is one of the reasons I had Justin read it before we did this recording, which I'm sure he's so happy.
Something we should note now. The ending thus far right now is kind of split into multiple parts.
Yes.
It's
Half
split
in the
like
cutscene.
the first two make sense. It's a cut, like one's a cutscene, the other is a little dialogue with Eris, and then the final one is a book.
Yeah, it's kind of split up into 3 parts in that regard. It's officially 2 when it comes to the events that unfold, and kind of 3. Maybe 4 if you count the recording with Ikora, but yeah, it's more of an add-on. And that is the cutscene, which is followed up immediately by, in-game at least, a conversation with Eris, and then the thing with Ikora. But the actual chain of events go more akin to cutscene, lore book chapter that you get after you've done all the other 3 things, yes, and then Eris and then Ikora. And why do I point that out? What's so big about that? Well, the reason is because in other news, actually, the bulk of what happens that's more interesting probably is actually in the lore book itself. Now, for those who haven't played this more recent events, probably should have had a disclaimer here. We are going to be talking about the ending, so
Yes. Take a
put that in the
second.
description.
Take a second. You're gonna have.
I think we've gone past the point of disclaimer, but allow me to just retroactively put it in here, and I'll put it in the description. Don't worry. Well, I should have Justin put it in the description. He's the one who writes it. I see him
POV you
eyeing.
are planning.
I can see just this cartoony version of as he's eyeing the mic, the eye just extending out of the skull.
It's like
I'm the one who does it.
yes.
But yeah, I say I'm doing it, but in reality it's the editor. But jokes aside,
The editor does everything for me.
not everything. But again, jokes aside, again, we'll be talking about the kind of ending here. So outside of the cutscene that happened, we're going to be talking about what happens in the lore book. So if you haven't played it, I'll give you a second to click off.
Yep.
2, 1. Okay, you've had your second. So, For those who are still here, what happens is effectively in the lore book, big news, our guardian speaks. It's shocking. That's not that's not the lore shaking part. I just thought I'd point that out. We've never actually had the guardian speak in cutscene before. Or in lore book like this.
We haven't actually had the Guardian
Ah,
talk in cutscene.
it's late for you and me. But we actually haven't had the Guardian talk in lore book before, at least not in this regard.
Yes.
Kind of we had them in the Chronicon with Callus, but that was not really real events that happened, so to speak. That was kind of just Callus making stuff up.
Yeah.
We've never actually had the Guardian talk in real book.
Like
I think.
in the lore books, the Guardian,
Yeah,
like
like
your
commenting on events.
character hasn't been talking or really participated directly in the book. The
Yeah,
Guardian's been mentioned, but that's about it.
Yeah, generally the lore books are about other people. We generally don't ever have one featuring the Guardian, or if they do, it's just they exist and then it's from the perspective of someone else, and that's about it.
It's someone else going and referencing us in some way, not us going and talking or referencing someone else.
Yeah. The last time we saw something akin to that was actually season of the Defiance. Funny enough, and it was actually in I think one of the Gunlore tabs, where it was actually from the perspective of our ghost while we were at the farm talking strategy with I think like Devon or something, and Ghost kind of flies off and makes commentary about what we're talking about, but never mind. So it's referencing we're talking, but doesn't actually say what we're saying. In this case, we do actually, and it's kind of rather interesting. So again, for those who've seen the cutscene, and for those who've heard of what I just said, Savathun has her throat slit. She dies, and then the lore book follows up immediately with what happens after, with basically Eris kind of propping herself on one elbow and kind of looking up at Savathun, being like, "Okay, you've had your deal, so out with it. Where is this way to follow the witness that you promised us?" And spoiler alert, she doesn't really give it to us.
Yes
Shocking.
and no.
I mean, she
I'll get
does.
to that in a moment, but
Yeah, we'll
I
get
have
to
an
that.
idea.
Yeah, we'll get to that, and there's a lot of theories as to how, but basically what ends up happening is that Savathun just basically admits that, in fact, she has given us what we wanted, and she already did. And when we say, "How the heck did you do that?" she's like, "Oh, I'm disappointed in you." And just basically assures us that it'll happen, that we'll find it when we need it, in traditional Savathun fashion, before cackling and walking down a hallway. But in between point A, B, and C, Ikora actually gets pissed off at what is presumed Savathun pulling a fast one and challenges Savathun to basically a duel, effectively. Savathun looked really into it and basically gloats, "You cannot stop me." And then we, who again are still in the room at this point, basically step him and say, "Yeah, but we can. We
Yeah,
can
we
stop
kind
you."
of like step right beside Yeah, in the book it goes and says we step beside Eris and kind of just go and look over at Savathun going and saying we can.
Yeah, basically. And again, Ikora is considered to be the strongest guardian, so the fact that Savathun was not at all phased at the idea of facing Ikora and seemed actually really into it until we stepped up kind of says a lot. And Savathun just kind of deflates after that and just is like, "Okay then."
Yeah, it's like, maybe this isn't worth it.
Yeah, immediately backs away.
So, yeah.
So yeah, we talked. Funny enough. But yeah. Also, in other news, Imaru is apparently left behind by Savathun in Vanguard custody, as in her own basically methodry, effectively a form of insurance to ensure that she stays on the straight and narrow. Basically, her way of giving us collateral.
Yeah.
And then she cackles and walks down a hallway, while Imaru sits there steaming at the fact he had no say in any of it.
Well, he's a
So
good
yeah,
little pawn and goes and plays his role.
Even if he really doesn't like to. So yeah, that's kind of where we stand right now, with Savathun having apparently given us the way to follow the witness. Won't tell us, but still says she gave it to us anyway.
Yep.
And Eris kind of basically playing along and saying, fair enough, you can leave. Granted, that's after she gives Immaru as collateral. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we stand right now. In fact, Justin actually made a comment to this earlier. In the lore book section, where again this whole conversation takes place, we are actually missing the final and 8th page of the lore book.
Yeah.
And my guess is that'll be the one that actually explains how we follow the witness, or perhaps the after effects of us finding the method to follow the witness. Not only that, but we are still missing 3 radio communications over the radio.
Yes.
Not sure how to say that.
Which brings me to the point of likely what Sabathun referred to as giving us the means to get there is likely referring to obviously something that we've did during the season, but I'm willing to bet is linking to Eris. Likely what's going to end up happening is Eris is going to end up being some kind of key that we need to use, and she's going to kind of open up a pathway to allow us to actually go through the portal.
Possibly. That's another interpretation.
There's a good chance that like she's going to make it so that we could safely cross the portal.
I mean, in fairness, in the lore book just prior, on a side note, she does make commentary on how she wished she could see Eris's hivification, for lack of a better word, and her hive form, and comments on, there might be time. She seems really into the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of get a hint of that in the cutscene where Savathun kind of compliments her in her own way about her hiviness.
Yeah. So.
But nonetheless, that is an interesting interpretation. I've actually not seen anyone point that out. Me, I actually think it has to do with the Imbaru engine.
Maybe.
And whatever's at the end of it. Because here's the thing,
there's a good chance that too might be involved.
We discover it on the side, and if you look at the cards, and you kind of don't know this because you still have too many mix and match cards, but
yes,
the very, very last card of all the cards in the Arcana is still locked. All the other cards are available except that one. And if you know how the card system works, generally each one follows the order of like stuff. So all of the major Arcanas are next to each other. All of the ones that give you deep sight are next to each other, and just kind of go in a line. And the ones that are locked is at the very end of a string that has to do with the 3 Imbaru engine sections. We have the first section, we have the second section, but the third card, which is presumably the last section, is still locked. So, my guess is that whatever's at the end of the Imbaru engine will be Savathun's fulfilling of the deal and giving us the way in, so to speak. I've even heard people say that maybe it's an Ahamkara because she makes a slight jab of like, you'll have to find out what form it takes, and people kind of played with the idea that maybe she's referring to an Ahamkara because they can shapeshift.
Yeah.
Maybe? I don't know. I doubt it. But it's possible. We really have no idea what it is. Well, no, we kind of do. That's kind of a lie. A few lore books back, there is a reference to an heirloom. Specifically when Immaru is sitting in basically the ritual circle by himself, kind of just reading or listening to playbacks of Savathun's contingencies that she left for him in case of anything happening. We see contingencies for what happens if it was Ikora who took the bargain. We see contingencies for what happens if, they discover her true intentions early, before her revival. We discover what happens if Eris finds a way to kind of circumvent and, kind of go the dark timeline. And among all of these kind of predictions, Savathun makes reference to something called the heirloom. In reference to what happens in, again, aforementioned, what happens if someone finds out the pattern early. She makes reference to a pattern and what happens if they discover it early. Basically, Savathun says to Immaru, take the heirloom, she refers to it as an heirloom, and hand it to the Cabal. And supposedly, with the heirloom, that will allow a protracted war between Keitel and Xivu Arath, and then Imaru is to approach the Vanguard with an alternative deal.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that one. Like, seeing a video about someone discussing that, so...
Interestingly enough, she also makes reference to the fact that if we discovered early, there's a chance that we would, very likely chance, that we would probably go and take it by force. And basically, Savathun says to Amaru, let them have it, because fighting them off would only play to Xivu Arath's advantage. Instead, don't fight them off, simply take it and give it to Keitel and let that happen. And again, protracted war, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
We still have no idea what the heirloom is. And apparently it was some linchpin in one of her contingency plans that would somehow allow Keitel's forces to fight on par with Xivu, which, yeah, if you know the story behind Tora Bottle, you know how well that happened.
Yeah.
So whatever it is...
That's clearly something important.
Indeed. Something that would have given Keitel the ability to fight with Xivu in some form of protracted war. Considering, according to the books relating around the fall of Tora Battle, basically Tora Battle fell in a way akin to the 7-Day War from, like, one of the video games.
Half-Life. Yeah.
Half-Life, yeah.
Yeah. Basically, well, no, not 7-Day War, 7-hour war. Half-Life is a 7-hour war.
I can't remember if it was like 7 days or 7 hours.
Nah,
anyways,
yeah. I mean, you're probably getting confused with, like, what is it, 28 days or something?
Maybe. But, yeah, by the sounds of the lore book revolving around the Fall of Tora Bottle, it sounds like they lost worse than the frickin' 7-hour war in Half-Life, so... And that's already a pretty low bar, so...
Yeah.
How the heck this would allow them to fight with Xivu, I have no idea. And we still have no idea what it is, so maybe it's the heirloom? Then again, Savathun makes reference to what happens if they discover it early, so it sounds like we're supposed to find it at some specific point. So maybe Savathun's disappointment when we didn't find it after revival came from the possibility that we haven't, reached that stage in her plan yet, so we're kind of behind schedule in that regard, maybe?
Perhaps. Or we're about to be on schedule.
Maybe. Nonetheless, that's kind of where we stand right now, with Savathun supposedly having given us the method already, and yeah. Us kind of sitting there twiddling our thumbs to the idea of what that exactly is. Now, as for the other recordings we don't have, I imagine we're going to probably have them either during the season, or not the season, the
final week or something.
Not the final week, definitely after presumably the epilogue or before it. Well, no, presumably after it, as well as sometime before and after. What's that Halloween event? Hold up, let me check my calendar. Festival of Lost, thank you. After they started doing seasons, after they started creating a season as well as a festival named after the same dang thing, I got confused over that. I've been confused ever since.
True.
But nonetheless, my guess is, and again, this kind of happened in one kind during Season of the Splicer. We got radio messages before, just before either during Festival of the Lost, or in that case, I think it was Solstice, and right after Solstice, and then right after Solstice, I think like a week or two after the epilogue happened, and we got another message after that. So I imagine we're probably going to get some radio message either during Festival of the Lost or right after it. That might continue the story a bit.
Alright.
I don't know, maybe it'll be Savathun, or maybe it'll be Imaru gloating, or Savathun gloating, or something, I don't know. So, So that's where I presume the final recordings are going to come from, and I'm pretty confident on that theory. But as again, what exactly the heirloom is and what the method to follow the traveler or follow the witnesses, I have no idea. And I don't think anyone else does either.
Yeah.
Bunch of educated guesses, but that's about it. So, Yeah, that's currently where we stand. What do you think, Justin? Anything to kind of add in there anywhere?
Not really. Like it is. All we can kind of do is theorize. I mean, I'm gonna stick along the lines of Eris is going to be some kind of involvement with us getting through the portal. Is just in what way I don't know. If it's major or minor, but no matter what, I have a feeling it's gonna be in some way.
Maybe, maybe. I still think it has to do with the Embaro engine, and I guess we'll just happen to see which
Well,
one of us
no,
is
like
right.
here's the thing. It might even be like involving
Bit
the
of both.
Embaro engine. It's just Eris is gonna have to like do something in order to have it function the proper way for us.
That's also possible. Like I said, we'll see which one of us is right when the time comes, I suppose. There's still, what,
A
according
lot.
to the season chart I have in front of us, 53 days left as of the
Yeah,
recording of this video, so
there's still a fair
we've
amount of time.
we still got at least a month to ponder over this. So,
Yep.
yay.
Just see where it goes.
We'll see where it goes. I imagine there's going to be a lot of people who at this point will check out and just maybe check back in during Season of the Haunted. Festival of the
Yeah.
Lost and the Dawning, those are two
Like that's
events.
that's the big thing right now. Chances are a lot of people are gonna start checking out, which is typically what happens in the latter half of a season. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, Festival of the Lost has always had a very, very bad reputation in Destiny's history, and this goes all the way back to its inception. And this is kind of me getting on a tangent here, I admit, but Festival of the Lost has had a bit of a a lot of a bad history in Destiny history, like I said, having to do strictly with its monetization policy, which has resulted in a lot of people just outright skipping the event altogether.
Yeah.
Which might be where the lore books that we always seem to get with Festival of the Lost come from. Maybe they're trying to encourage people to get back into it. I mean, I always play the events anyway, just for stuff to do, and I don't mind it too much because I rarely spend cash on the events anyway. I honestly never do.
Yeah.
But it got so bad at one point that it's forever been resulting in Festival of the Lost kind of holding the unequivocal moniker of Festival of the Cost due to the insane monetization that's always kind of followed that particular event. Granted, the others have not been too much better, but they've been received arguably in a much better light, at least by and large. But yeah, Halloween event, yikes. So again, this is where a lot of people will probably check out and maybe check back in whenever the epilogue comes around, whenever that is. Which will probably be in about a month or so. Not that it's a bad thing, I suppose. I mean,
No.
Assassin's Creed Mirage just came out today, so you'll all have that to play in the meantime.
There's that for you.
Granted, I hear it's only about 10 or 20 hours, depending on who you ask, but hey, whatever.
It's better than some games nowadays.
Yeah. I mean, I'll play it. I have it. The only reason I haven't installed it yet and begun playing it is because, number one, this video. Number two, I've not finished Valhalla yet. Now, granted, that is not a result of how long the game is. That is actually a result of a bad habit of mine. That is, I will get to the end of a very long game. I will get so kind of engrossed in it that I'm like, I don't feel like ending the game just yet. Because when a game finally like ends, there's rarely really any drive for me to go back to it. So what I'll probably end up doing is I'll put it down, pick it up later, or maybe I'll just automatically just restart the game again. It's a weird and bad habit of mine, which is why games like Valhalla, Red Dead 2, and for the longest time before Valhalla came out, Odyssey, the previous game, I had not completed because I just kept restarting it. I had to literally burn all the way through Odyssey and even skip some of the DLC, specifically all the Atlantis stuff, which kind of pissed me off because I really wanted to play that DLC, but whatever. I imagine it's going to be a same dang story with me and Valhalla.
It might.
Granted, I'm not too upset about missing the Francia and Ireland DLCs, so I'm not going to be too shaken up about those ones, though I will still probably play them to some extent. We will see. But again, that's me getting into another tangent altogether. So, that's where we stand with Bungie, that's where we stand with Destiny, that's where we stand with the events. Yeah, I think that about covers it. That's our 2 cents on the matter, unless you have any final thoughts.
Nope, that's everything on my end.
All right, then. I guess we'll let you go. We've rambled for long enough.
Yep.
I can already
Hopefully you
hear
all
Justin
enjoy.
tired. Have a good weekend, guys.
Oh, no final thoughts or anything, or nothing final to say. Well, I thought I had a feeling you were gonna say something. You were like
this-
ending that off in a
this-
way where it seemed like you were
yeah,
gonna
no,
say something.
That's fair. We've had that happen a lot of times. No. Again, this is why I've always said we have to do this in the room together. That's why it's easier to read each other. We don't have this issue. But anyways, no, I'll leave it here. Like I said, that's our season. That's our thoughts. Hopefully something comes of it. And yeah, have a good weekend, everybody.
And see you in the next week.